Welcome to the Myself Wellness Podcast. I'm Charles Patti, the voice of Myself Wellness, along with my co-hosts Christina Thomas and Jamie Venziel. 9 years ago, I began my journey to self-awareness and healing. Like many who have faced personal struggles, I felt lost and struggled to find lasting healing. It wasn't until I discovered alternative healing methods that I began to see a real change in my life. This show will help you unlock your true potential through healthy lifestyle practices and transformations. Join us as we explore personal stories, expert advice, and practical tips to help you step into your true potential and level up. Welcome to the Myself Wellness Podcast. So welcome to the Myself Wellness Podcast. And today we're here with the amazing Mr. Jeffrey Delaney. And Jeff, you founded T-Clinics USA.
And NuViva, both companies.
Okay. Yeah, you're the man.
He's making men great again, one man at a time.
Yes.
You know, I've always been in like health, wellness, more healthcare. I moved down to Florida. It was like 2001, 2. You know, it was kind of taboo back in the day in the early 2000s. You know, there was hormone therapy, but it wasn't spoken about. Weight loss, there was a lot of cookie cutter programs, but no one really had tried to address the problem, kind of like what Myself Wellness said. You know, they try to get down, you know, deeper than just masking it with medication. So, you know, it's like there was such a need. Now, obviously, Florida, or if you want to say Arizona, you know, those markets, you have everyone's outside. They care about how they look and how they feel. And, you know, so I think we're primed. Most people are retirees and they're suffering, you know, either from just having too much weight or, you know, hormones being off. So, you know, we are in probably one of the best areas for the business I'm in.
This is a war that can only be won with love. And I think that if I just keep putting that loving, positive energy out there and, like Jeff said, putting people first before everything else, then I'm going to attract a way more positive energy coming back to me than if I just went out guns a-blazing.
Yeah. And also, too, like, you know, you learn to play the game, right?
Okay.
And if it's truly a passion of yours and you're truly out to do what's right, eventually, like, somebody's got to fight that fight. Right? You don't have to fight toe to toe. You don't have to push back against. You learn to kind of comply. And if anything, like why those rules are there, you learn how to function within those rules. And if it's, once again, if it's truly your passion, you will find a way and eventually get it to where it's undeniable in what you're doing, at least from your clinic or your business. You know, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of places out there not doing it the right way. And that's like creating some problems. So, you know, it's just, you just gotta, you know, somebody's got to fight it.
And listen, I want to go ahead and chime in and let everybody know out there that, like, it's a real pleasure to have people like Jeff and T-Clinics USA and like companies like that where, you know, I trust this guy, you know what I'm saying? And I know he's doing good work and it's a safe place for people to go to and actually getting people that are on that, like, we do things the right and the safe way path. It's nice to have, you know, people like Jeff to collaborate with.
If you're going to do it 110%. So, you know, as far as the application is always has to be done to the person. It's not a cookie cutter approach. I could tell you firsthand, just like dealing and actually going through Myself Wellness. It's not cookie cutter, and it's, you know, listening to the client, but also taking, you know, per whatever the business, and we'll just talk hormones, you know, what's going on with the client, how do the symptoms match up, and then application of what's needed, whether, and you got to take into account like the person's age, what they're dealing with. And so just making sure you're applying it individually to the person versus just trying to blanket it to the masses.
Everybody's different. That's what we always say at Myself Wellness. Everybody is unique. They come to the table with different traumas, and we can't put everybody in a box because what might work for me isn't going to work for you, isn't going to work for you, and isn't going to work for you. So you really do have to meet people where they're at and just guide them along that journey and do what's best for them, not what's best for you.
It's just that, like I said, I could tell you firsthand, and that's why I trust them so much with you know, any of our clients or patients. If you want to say patient, I don't like saying patients, I say clients, but you know, it's just knowing that they have the best interest and they're going to adjust whatever's needed to them, or, hey, they might not need it. You know, it's, some people look at it as like, they don't want to lose out on the dollar of the client. And I'm A-okay with that because, you know, at some point they will need you or somebody in their family will need you. It'll come back some way, shape or form. And so, you know, like I have true confidence. There's not many people I refer to, right? So one, I won't refer if I don't believe in it. Number two, I won't refer if I haven't done it myself. And so, just keeping that stance and that mission, which I know they have, which is very in line and similar to mine.
Thank you. Our biggest source of our leads coming in is people referring. And that's just because we take good care of people.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, I was just talking to them. I have some staff, at some of my clinics that, I want to help them out. Like we're trying to work something out to get them in there as well. I believe in it that much, and just once again, it's not so much the therapy; it's the people operating and how the therapy is done, and just the follow-up that happens after that. I always try to caution people, like, be cautious where you go, because now you have all these places popping up online. You have the mind blooms and stuff like that. It's just, definitely do your research and do your due diligence, and kind of, just don't. A lot of people they're so quick to jump to the thing versus, kind of getting a little bit more information before they take that step. That's one. It's who you have, your team that you have. Is just, make sure everyone stays in line with your mission. And gosh, that guy looks amazing for his age. Like, it's so sharp. But it's just, once again, he truly tries to understand and will give you the tips and tools and things that kind of put your mind in the right spot when you're doing it. So.
It's funny because so many people are like, oh, I have my own psychiatrist, or like, oh, I don't like psychiatrists. And I'm like, trust me, he's nothing like any other psychiatrist you have ever going to work with. And like, people literally come out of his office in tears, like a lot of the time, but in the most positive, healing, therapeutic tears. Like, oh my gosh, he's amazing, you weren't lying, kind of thing. So now that we've kind of opened the door about it a little bit and stuff, and you said that you went through the treatments. When you first came in, what were you expecting?
I'm a science nerd for sure, and like I love like looking at new therapies and things. And I've heard of Ketamine years ago, and I was like, wow, this sounds pretty amazing, and what it could do to the brain and neuroplasticity. And so I had some people locally that actually went through the clinic, people that I knew were struggling, and like it was crazy the difference in like a short 3-6 week period time. And so I actually started recommending, but there was a period of time a few years back, my wife, her mom got diagnosed late stage lymphoma, kind of got missed. She passed really, really quick within like 6 months, at an early age. And then it was like our dog of like 17 years passed away. And then she had a friend, and she went into this depression. I've never seen that woman depressed. And, I kept seeing these positive outcomes, and I'm like, I'm definitely not going to go the SSRI route. Just everything I've seen and know, it's not, sometimes it makes things worse. So, I actually put her through Charles's clinic, and this is before I even did it myself, but I didn't see any negative responses from anyone. I mean, like, it was textbook, like clockwork for most people. And so, I convinced her in, because she was kind of like hesitant. She doesn't like to take much medication. So she went through, and it was like within like the second, mostly like the third treatment was like where complete 360, and just how she was, her just overall like just mood, it literally pulled her out of that like funk she was in. And I was worried. So then, like, as time went by, and I used to think ketamine was just for the people that are battling or depressed or have a ton of issues. I was wrong, like, after doing it myself. So, I had my wife go through, good outcome, still thought, okay, someone's battling, it's a great fast like way to kind of get things going back in the right direction, a little bit quicker than conventional medications that they try to put people on, which create 10 times more problems. So my brother actually was, and he's fine with me talking about this, so I'm not gonna like, he was battling, he had some stuff happen when we were kids. He was going through that midlife crisis. He actually runs one of my clinics here in Naples, and you could just tell he was battling really hard. And so I recommended that he go through it, and he wouldn't go. Like, I think it was, he didn't want to accept it. Number two, he didn't want to burden me with it. Number three, he didn't want me to spend the money for him to go through it. So, time went by and he never like pulled the trigger to go. And I think it was just early last year, I got to the point where I'm like, well, you know what, man, I'm sending all these people and I'm seeing such a good outcome. It's hard for me to like, most of the stuff I do in my business, I'm usually the guinea pig. I've always been a guinea pig. Even prior to me being in medicine, it's like, I need to know, front, back, sideways, like how stuff works. And so he wasn't going. So I kind of gave him the ultimatum. I said, listen, I'm going to go do ketamine treatment. I was like, because I want to see what it's about and like how it works. And I was like, I'm going and you're going. And if you don't go, you don't have a job. And he's worked with me since like 2008, 9. And, so he finally accepted and went. And, when it comes to my brother, I've watched, once again, textbook within like 3 treatments and things just got better. And when we were done with treatment, I'll talk about my treatment in a second, he was like, thank you. He's like, I really didn't want to like accept that I was battling and dealing with some stuff, but also too, it was the financial things as far as just, he didn't want to spend the money. I think he just wanted to accept it. Right. So, but he's like, I'd do it 10 times over. And he's like, thank you. That's the best gift you ever given me. And so, that was like huge to hear him say that, but watch him just get back to who he used to be, the Michael that I knew versus, where he was at that moment in time, and so, but at the same time I went through it and I feel like I'm a pretty happy person. I don't think I have a lot of stuff in my past that kind of, but I think we all do. We have a lot of stuff that happens, whether it be very, very small, that could have been a pebble that eventually you kind of suppress things or you try to block it out and it becomes much bigger than what it is. And even something small, you don't think it's significant. And, I think it tends to like 100%, it changed the way that I maybe respond to certain things, like the stress levels that I deal with. And I kind of realized really, really quick, just after the first treatment, just even some of the things I thought weren't a big issue that I did deal with kind of came up and I saw it. And, what I like about like with ketamine is it actually lets you see it from a third party perspective, disassociated from it with no emotion to it. And I was like trying to understand because, I'm like so analytical with stuff like that, like how are these people like, easiest or best analogy I'd say is I felt like people had like they're carrying the world on their back and it was just like they just got lighter every single time. And then after going through it, I was like, you kind of like unpack this deep baggage, this heavy stuff that might have been light at one point, and you just start kind of letting it go and you're okay with it. And I had a sense of peace every single time, like all the treatments, and I just did a touch-up treatment, that just everything's going to be okay. And you have this like whole new respect for yourself and like love for yourself that maybe you didn't have before because you just, oh, it's just the craziest thing. So, so I went through 6 treatments. I felt by 3, like I was good, but I'll tell you the thing that I noticed the most. So like whether you're someone battling with depression or even myself, I deal with a lot of stress on the day-to-day. I have 2 corporate companies and collectively 17 locations and a lot of headaches. And, my stress response was the biggest thing I noticed is just like how when things would go, a hiccup would come or like some changes in like how you got to prescribe or do certain things in your business, it was like I was able to deal with it so different. And I was kind of like, who am I? Normally I would have got pissed or I would have got mad or I would have let it dwell on me and it would affect like my day or my week or my month. And it was like I didn't have any of that. Like I was just even like this type of stuff. And I'll tell you, because we have our podcast and, this is probably my biggest, probably my biggest fear, right? It's just talking to people. I'm great one-on-one, but I don't like being on camera. I'm kind of like Chandler on Friends, like when he goes to smile and like, it's real awkward. And I noticed like I wasn't getting anxiety before I would have to speak to a group. And, I kind of now I'm at a point where I welcome it because I'm okay with it. It's just my overall sense of well-being is so different.
I love seeing. That's one of the biggest things that I actually found with ketamine for myself also. I mean, like some of the experiences that I had were completely mind blowing and like divine experiences and things. But today is a perfect example. So like, we had an important meeting that we were supposed to have at 9:30 this morning. And, our son wasn't cooperating this morning, getting ready and everything and stuff like that. And like, we're on the way to go drop him off to school. And
Which we were late for.
Which we were late for anyways. And then all of a sudden there's this like 2 trucks in the middle of the road and this woman standing out there with a stop sign. So we're stuck on the road and we couldn't even get around it, right? And like, I just kind of like the old Charles would have been flipping out. Like I just would have been completely flipping out. And I just looked over at Christine and I just started laughing. I was just like, what are you going to do about it?
That's not even the half of it though. So we have an extremely busy day at the clinic, 2 meetings before 10 o'clock. The Wi-Fi is out at the clinic. I forgot my computer there. So we're rushing around trying to find internet somewhere. My computer's dead. So then
she's
I
sitting,
try 3 different plugs. None of them work.
She's sitting on the sidewalk outside in like a outside shopping center by our clinic, like on the sidewalk, plugged into a plug, like trying to make sure that she could use her computer to get everything going. And I think that like, Kevin O'Leary talks about it and he's like, one of the things about being an entrepreneur that you really have to nail down is the art of pivot. Okay. And I think that like ketamine for me gave me the ability to be able to pivot without losing it through the process. And I think that was one of the biggest benefits that I've
ketamine and a whole lot of shit being thrown at us to learn how to pivot and stay cool.
For sure.
Well, I think your threshold for pain when it comes to that type of stuff on an entrepreneur, like I thought it was pretty good before. I almost feel like, man, I could deal with anything. Like I welcome it. It's like, it's almost now I'm just like, okay, like right now at this moment, that's why I wanted to touch up recently is I'm dealing with so much on both companies right now. I have a new active care, or a post-care space coming up, hiring new employees. My house is being renovated, which is, I don't even want to go into that. That's typical. I'm just able to deal with things so much better now than before. I used to think it was for the people that are deeply battling and like, you don't know if they're going to be around in a week or a month or whatever. I actually saw someone today that I recommended it to. I actually took some extra time and sat down with someone that like, in years I would meet people that like you could tell they're battling hard and they might not be here tomorrow. Like, and I've had that like happen, like where you get that sense that things aren't right. And then a week later, I actually had one of my good friends up in Ohio. So it's just one of those things where I just feel like for someone battling, probably the best, fastest, quickest thing to try to get someone turned around or at least kind of stopped in their tracks and start getting help. Right. But for me, like, I didn't think I had a lot of issues. And like I said, all of us deal with something, little things that aren't big that, now that I look back on how I am and how I respond, it was affecting who I was. The father that I am, like just the entrepreneurial guy that, deals with his staff a certain way. And so I truly feel like everyone could benefit from it. Obviously, it's not just go get ketamine, but like, I think for me, it'll be something that I keep in my regimen, just to kind of never pack any baggage away. I'm going to run light and stay light. And I could see, just what it's done for me personally with not having some deep issues. It's a game changer.
That's the one thing like I'm seeing. I love that you just talked about that, because the thing is that that's what we're really trying to do is break the narrative down that this is for the person that's on the brink of suicide. And like, it's frustrating because I have, like the other day I took a call with a guy and his wife had called up first and she wanted to get him in for treatments and, and she was like, okay, yeah, he's definitely going to do this. And so she actually made an appointment for him. And then all of a sudden I get the phone call back and it's like, listen, like, I'm not that sick, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and listen, like, isn't this only for people that have already been on 2 different, you know, psych meds or antidepressants already or whatever, and they didn't work for them? And I'm just like, here's the thing. Like, we end up getting people off of all of their pharmaceutical medications at the end of the day. So, you know, there are clinics out there where if you haven't been on 2 different antidepressants, that they won't even consider you for treatments. And so it's a last line of resort. And I think that this should be more looked at as like a first line of resort, you know, because it goes back to the whole ketamine has such a bad rap. I mean, it's so incredibly safe, and like, you know, the side effects are so limited to it where, you know, I don't think I want to get away from the aspect of people think it's a better option to be on an antidepressant every day for the rest of their life than taking this medicine. You know,
I mean, you got to, I mean, just look at SSRIs, you know, like I think almost like 60% of the population don't respond. And you have like, of the people that do get some response out of it, I would say like of that, you know, we'll say 40% gets results, like 90% of that 40% has issues. And so it's like, just the safety profile done right in the proper setting, you know, with someone who knows what they're doing is super safe. Like, you know, once again, I've seen multiple areas of medicine, and you know, that's what I love about. You could avoid. Don't wait till you've already done 3 or 4 or 5 different things. Like, you could almost not have to evolve to where you need that type of stuff. There's actually even like cool peptides out that typically can help with like neurotransmitters and dopamine, serotonin. I mean, I do love like the evolution of what's happening, and there are a lot more cool things coming out. But you know, I think, and I wanted to say this earlier, is like, if somebody is battling or someone is like severely depressed, 100%, like if it's a loved one, like that would, for me, that's my first line. Like, I'm just speaking from my perspective, is like, get them in, get them taken care of. But for someone who's not depressed, and just maybe you just trying to just be a better version of yourself, me, you know, I definitely, like, it broke the stigma for me by doing it. So, but when it comes to like business, I just feel like I see things very differently. I deal with things that are stressful the way you probably should deal with them, versus before you would be rash or act, or, you know, say something you shouldn't say, or do something you shouldn't do. So I just feel you're able to pivot way better and be okay with the pivots. And just, for me, it's my overall stress has not been this good ever in my life.
You could just talk about in life in general or for entrepreneurs, but like being in flow state, being in a state of flow where you're just moving like water through the day. That is really what, you know, not only psychedelic medicines, but ketamine especially. Ketamine was probably actually the most effective, because I think when we get too off kilter on an emotional level, or if, you know, if I'm frustrated or if I'm mad, it's like that's the opposite of being in flow state. Just being able to, and we keep throwing the word pivot around, it's just like, oh, wait, nope, didn't work that way. Oh, no. Even at the gym. So like, check this out. Listen, I know that nobody owns the gym, and by no means do I think that I do, but like when you go in there and you're like, all right, this is what I'm doing today, you have in your mind what you're going to do for your lift, right? So, you know, I'll hit one machine, or I'll start off my exercise, and then in my head, okay, after I'm done with this machine, I'm going to go use another machine, and I already know which machine I'm going to use. I get done with that exercise, and then I go to get the other machine, and somebody's on it, but they're not just on it, they're playing on their cell phone, and they're not really using it properly or whatever. And like, you know, years ago, I would have been pissed. You know, like I probably wouldn't have said anything, but it would have affected me, and it would have thrown me off, and I would have been really angry about it. And now it's kind of like, I'll get done with that exercise and I'll go to use the other machine, and then somebody will like jump on it on my way to walk there or whatever, and I'm like, oh, universe didn't want me to use that one right now, so I just like flow to another machine, and it's like it keeps me perpetually moving without being thrown off, no matter what's really thrown at me. I had a conversation with a guy yesterday, and he was just like, listen, I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to. He actually just got back from India, and he was like there, like, on his spiritual journey, and he was meditating all day and stuff like that. And he's just like, I feel like I have so much to offer the world, but I can't get out of my chair. I watch TV for 8 hours a day. It's what I do. And it's like, that's that level of, and here's one of the key words that we hear when people come to our clinic is like, I feel so stuck. I'm stuck. And like, that goes to, like mental health, dopamine levels, hormone levels, and like, all I kept saying to him was, listen, man, I really feel like this is going to ignite that flame within you and make you want to get out of that chair. It's weird because like you would think of it almost being the opposite when you're talking ketamine because it's an anesthetic. It's going to give you more energy. Yeah. But it actually does once you start creating more dopamine naturally, and once you
unblock your own healing energies, like Dr. Ferber would say.
Yeah. Blocking your own loving healing energy from within.
Yeah. We had one girl, I went to go tell her mom after her first treatment that she was still doing okay because she had wanted to know how she was doing. And she's like, well, we can go have some wine after this, right? And I was like, no, you can't go and have any wine after this. Alcohol is a depressant. We're trying to undo her depression. She's like, but just one glass. And I'm like, no, she can't have any wine after this. She may vomit. We just gave her an anesthetic. No, she can't have wine. She's like, but just one. And I'm like, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but she has depression. We're treating her for depression, and alcohol is a depressant. And ultimately, unfortunately, that girl didn't get help because she kept going home and drinking after. And then it was our fault that the ketamine treatments didn't help her.
It's like one of the most memorable cases because like she was so vocal about how this didn't work. It didn't work for me. This is a joke. This is a waste of money, And it's like,
but what did you do?
But you drank every day after your treatments were over. And so it's like, I think that like this just goes back to the whole like, mind, body, spirit, what I put in here, what I put in here, what I put in here, what I do physically affects the way that I feel. And if any of this stuff is going to be effective, I mean, listen, like, even when you're talking about going and doing TRT or something like that, it's like you go and you start doing the shots, but if you're not doing anything like healthy for yourself physically, or if you're, still eating a really unhealthy diet and stuff like that, like, this isn't it goes back to this is the catalyst. It's a tool. It's not the silver bullet. So no matter what that you do, you're gonna end up having to put some work behind it.
He had intentions to do good. He wants to do good, but he's stuck, right? And so a lot of times when you get into like, especially I always say dopamine, which is kind of like your get shit done hormone, like motivated to go actually do something. A lot of people that suffer from clinical depression, their serotonin, their dopamine's not where it should be. Or they have, obviously issues neurologically that it's just the levels are low. And so I do feel most people, as long as they have intentions to make a change, prior to the first treatment, I feel like after that first treatment, I was ready to go. Not right afterwards. The next day, though, I felt like I was ready to conquer the world. And I'll tell you, it gives you this like laser focus, and what you, and everyone's going to be different, but most people, I feel like it clears things up, and almost, I felt like I knew my direction and like how to get back on my path. Right. And most of the people I talk to that have gone through treatment, because I like to see, the difference in how each person responds. But a lot of it has to do with, helping out dopamine and serotonin. And so, but you do got to be ready to like somewhat make a change. But I think it's probably one of the best things to hopefully spur that and get that person in the right direction. And hopefully, that's the start of a lot of good stuff. So, there's actually dopamine in general. It's like there's a peptide tesofensine that works amazing for helping the reuptake of that. And, it's the crazy when you get somebody that has better dopamine levels, just they're like how motivated that person is to just complete tasks in general.
Would you be open to like describing or trying to like
what the treatment was like.
Yeah.
You know, per what I was dealing with at that time, you know, I had a lot of stuff going on with like business and partners and things that were kind of weighing down on me that I didn't think were affecting me. It was like seeing the thing I felt, right, that the things that were bothering me in my life, it was like I was able to almost see them. And, you know, if I was to wrap up like almost like the movie Interstellar with Inception, with like the clear understanding of Limitless, like it was like you were able to like see this and then know how to deal with, but you still obviously that's where a lot of people they'll get the answers, or they somewhat get the answers, but then they don't follow it through afterwards. So you still definitely need to do some work afterwards.
People don't like the answers a lot of times.
But yeah, so it was kind of like I felt like my life was in Inception, and like things were kind of moving and going. And I'll tell you, the craziest treatment was the third one. And I do agree, like sometimes more does not, like from the brain side, and as far as like neuroplasticity and reconnecting neurons and whatever, like you're going to get the benefit over time at that level. But I feel like being in that perfect plane, you're able to kind of see things so differently. And there was that in that treatment, it was, you know, I was seeing like shapes and different colored shapes. And like, I didn't really understand it at that time. And they were, you know, moving in a certain direction. And so, you know, I had like, and a couple of them were pretty distinct, and I didn't think about it, you know, that day after the treatment. I tried to journal because I do highly recommend it, just because there's things that you might see or not understand that as the week went on, things happened in my week that started piecing that together. And it was like, and I'll be open, you know, it's like I have certain, you know, business partnerships and people that work for the clinics. And like, it was almost like each shape and color was a different person. It was so textbook, like characteristic of how things were moving. I'm not going to go super in detail because like, you know, I don't want to. I might piss some people off. So, but it was how that intertwined with what I was truly dealing with at that moment. And it's kind of just, but you know, by the end of that treatment, as I thought back, it gave me clear understanding, like what I need to do for myself, and like how do I progress forward. And it's crazy. And everyone was so different, but just think of if you intertwine those movies and then take things in your life or snapshots and you see it kind of in that perspective. I guess you'd have to do it to understand it. Like, yeah.
You know, it's funny because like Jeff just said the limitless part intertwined into it. And we were on a phone call with a guy the other day, and basically we were talking about another compound that's similar to ketamine, but we were saying how it's very comparable to Limitless. And if you go back to the movie Limitless, after he took the pill, like what's the first thing that he did? He went home and he cleaned his house, you know, and he like got his self organized, and like it was like it lit that fire within him to like go and do the thing that he had probably been putting off for so long. And so, you know, I think that's basically what ketamine does it did for me, and it does for a lot of our clients, is that like it really ignites you to go organize everything and get rid of the clutter.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, you know, and incorporate that into your daily practice and into your life.
One of the coolest things I will tell you, every treatment I have, and even on this last one, I had this sense of feeling that like no matter what happens, no matter what's going on, even in the treatment, because sometimes it's, you know, you kind of feel like, I don't know, there's part of the treatment where I'm like, man, am I like, is there so much more to the world? And am I just like, is it so insignificant? But like I had this different like appreciation for my life, but more so like I had this just overall, just like no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. And no matter how I deal with things, I'm going to be okay. It's just this sense of well-being that just, you know, you're able to deal with whatever it is and you're going to be okay. Like, and I'll tell you, that's probably the biggest thing that I could try to understand for somebody who's battling. I don't know, but I could just see how they kind of get appreciation back for the life they do have, and they're willing to start doing something to make a change. NuVivaWeightLoss.com, or if you go on social at NuViva Weight Loss. We do try to put, I'm trying to make an effort to film more stuff. I'm big into putting free information out there. I do have some stuff coming out that's going to kind of hopefully point out some of the stuff we see on social media to just kind of redirect people to the things that are going to make a big difference versus focusing on the things that don't. I feel like that's definitely my call and mission, is to just weed through the BS, whether you're a client or not. I just love helping. And then T-Clinics would be tclinicsusa.com or at T-Clinics with an S USA. I truly have this special place in my heart, at least. What you guys are doing is definitely needed. From a medical standpoint, probably the best thing in my book that I've seen. Obviously, I wouldn't have done it myself or put my wife or my brother through there if I didn't believe so. It's nice to be able to have some of these resources that are not conventional to start helping people out.